Hi guys, and welcome to the Engage Music channel. Today we're going to be looking at drum and bass. So we're going to be looking at putting together the basic kind of setup for drum and bass and the instruments you tend to hear in that genre. So earlier today, I just composed a very quick kind of drum and bass outline. It's not perfect, it still needs some work, but the basic idea is pretty much there. So what I'm going to talk about first is that traditionally, not always, but the first thing you want to note about drum and bass is that the BPM tends to be around 160 to 180 BPM. Again, like most things in music, there are exceptions to these rules, but that's the kind of general basis. As I did some research into current drum and bass songs and songs from the past, I noticed that a lot of them tend to sit in the 175 BPM, which I also noticed a lot of YouTube tutorials we're looking at. So as you can see up here, where I'm just changing it now from 170 back up to 175, that is our BPM. So that's the BPM that I work to, 175. It could be 160 to 180 realistically to get that vibe. So the first thing I want to look at is the drums. Okay, so the drums, it sounds an obvious statement to say, but the drums in drum and bass are obviously very important. They have a certain sound, especially with the kick drum, traditionally. Again, exceptions to the rule and things, but traditionally we have a kind of a standard drum rhythm that we associate with the genre. So I'm just going to bring up the drum beat that I have. Before I bring it to your attention, just in case you are using Logic and this is the first time, or if you're using any DAW and this is the first time, one thing I just want to say is that all of the MIDI setup that I use and the audio files all work in pretty much the same in every DAW. Obviously, the plugins that I've used today are Logic stock plugins, so they won't be exactly the same, but the idea of what kind of sound you're going for will be. So even if you're using FL Studio or Cubase or Ableton, these sounds should be available to you in some capacity. It's just that I've used Logic Pro X for this demonstration. So if you think, oh, I actually use FL Studio, I don't know if this tutorial will be any help. It will, because the general idea of how we set about the song is what we're exploring today. I'm not going to say to you, you need to use this plugin or that plugin. At the end of the day, everyone's ears are different, and it's up to you to what you think sounds right. But everything that I'm going to show you today is applicable to all DAWs. So the first thing I did was load up the Big Room drum kit. So that's just standard, you insert a MIDI software instrument track as it loads up. I clicked on, electric drum kit, and I selected the Big Room, which gave me the Big Room electronic drum kit. So if I just bring up the MIDI screen here, this is our drum rhythm. Okay, so with the drums in drum and bass, they are very fast, obviously being at 175. And to be honest, they're quite simple. It's one of those things where you want to add in a nice few extra little things just to spice some things up. So here's what the drum rhythm sounds like on its own. I do apologise if there was a bit of crackle there. I've just tested it and it was fine. I think it's because I'm doing this recording or something silly like that. So the first thing I want to highlight to you is the kick drum, okay, which is these bits here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete these and I'll bring them back in a minute. So the drums on their own, you will notice they will start on the first bar, then on the second bar we're actually playing on the third beat, then in the third bar we're again playing in the third beat. Yeah, that's right. And then obviously we've got this extra one here. So that's why it's confusing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So this is what it sounds like in this sense. So it's dum, 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 da dum, da dum kind of rhythm. So let me just hear that again. So it's dum, da dum, dum, da da dum, 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 da da dum. Okay? That's the kind of standard kicked sound that we get with the drum and bass genre. One thing you also want in your kick is you want a bit of a wet sound to follow. you don't want a dead kick. You don't want a kick that just kind of goes thump and that's it. You want something that lingers on a little bit. So you can kind of hear just a little bit on the end there, okay? And it's big. It sounds really thick. So the kick drum is thick, okay? You want it to have a real punch behind it. So I'm just going to undo and bring back the bits that I've just deleted. So hi-hats up here. Again, really, it's a standard rhythm. The only difference here with this rhythm is that at the end, I add in a lot of hi-hats. So if I just do the thing again where I get rid of these, it's going to hear the hi-hats. Just by adding that, just gives us, again, that little bit of extra spice. Because otherwise it might become a little bit stale. Okay, so snares are the typical place you would expect them on the second beat of the bar. Yeah, so you're going to get them kind of rhythm. So together. Okay, and that was pretty much it. So throughout the whole of this track, when the drums come in, my big room kit just effectively uses that. Okay, it's that same rhythm each time it comes in. As you can see here in my overall session, it is basically coming in the same every time. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is toppers. So the thing is that I found when I did the whole mix together was that the hi-hats and the cymbal and the higher end sounds of the drum kit weren't really coming through. So I added in an audio sample of a topper, which sounds like this on its own. Okay, so that is an audio file. So that's a sample. So drum and bass use lots of samples. They're very well known for it as a genre. Okay, they use them for drops. They use them just as general effects to put in songs, maybe to create a melody, whatever it might be for. And it's the same with the drums as well. So together with the big room, this is what it sounds like as the drums together. So you can hear that it just sounds like there's a little bit more going on than if it was just the big room by itself. So it just adds that extra little oomph. I also added a pitch metal topper, but this was just to freshen up a little bit as the sections later on, quite similar to the top hat topper. And I use that more for the bits that went a little bit quieter. So, for example, in this section, just used it for the quieter little bits. Yeah, so it's just to help so it doesn't sound too kind of dead in that section. So that was the first bit. Now, yes, bass is important. I'll be honest with you. I actually created my melodies first and chose a chord sequence. So the first thing I did was I thought, right, what key do I want to be in? So I decided, despite it saying C major up here, because that's just the stock thing that it has written in Logic, I'm actually in G major, which means that basically we can use all the white notes apart from one, which is F. We actually have to semitone that to F sharp. Okay, so when we create our melody, effectively what I did there was just use those notes to do that. Now, one thing I used to create it was plucks and basically plucks and leads is how I created the melodies. So the first melody I created was actually using the pluck dream sequence sound effect in Logic. So again, if we open this up and you look at how the melody is, it's like that. So effectively, short notes to create the melody. Okay, the thing you've got to remember is this music is fast. You don't want it to linger on too much. Sometimes, which I'll get to in a minute with counter melodies, I did slow down the melody pace just to kind of give a nice counter to the main. But here is the pacing of this. So as you can see here, I put in the MIDI, the information for the MIDI. We've got quite short notes that come in pretty fast after each other. And it sounds like this. Okay, then I created the voice plucks. So if I load that up, again, you'll see it's actually a lot shorter notes this time, and they sounded like this. So if you hear them together, so you've got the main melody, counter melodies here. Let's hear what they sound like together. Okay, so you get the idea. There's a lot going on. Then we also have the dirty big lead. Again, Logic stock in. Again, just different melody. I always think that sounds like We Are the Children of the Night. Get us down, get up, get up, get up, now is the time to change. Sorry about that. That's what it sounds like to me anyway. But yeah, so now if we put all of those together. Oh, sorry, I forgot. There is another lead that I added in later as well, which was the fuzzy pluck lead, which again, short notes, counter melody. So effectively, I've got I've got three counter melodies alongside the main. To be honest with you, after creating it today, I don't really know what the main is. I'd probably say the dirty big lead is actually our main melody. Yeah, just because it stands out more in the mix. All the plucks, to be honest, and the mallet kind of effects, they're more counter melodies. So the fuzzy pluck lead sounds like this. So like I said, because it's a counter, I thought we'll slow it down, make it not be as frantic as the others. So now, if I play all of those all together, and these are our melodies, this is what it sounded like. So that's effectively your melody. Now, it depends how you like to work. I personally like to create melodies first, because then when I put chords behind them, I can hear how the melody works. I also do it the other way. Just depends how my head is working on that day. Sometimes I like to create the chord sequence first and then add the melody in after. In this example, I actually put the melody in first just because it just came naturally to me to do it that way. And obviously it helped me knowing what notes were available to me in the key that I was going to be using. So the next thing I put in was the chord sequence. So in a lot of drum and bass, I've noticed that there's like quite a nice string sound that goes on. So I used authentic strings. Again, it's a Logic plugin. So effectively so far, guys, you obviously want your drums. You want really fat, thick kick drum attached to that. You also want to make sure you've got a nice melody using plucks. Again, and dirty leads or a lead, whatever you want to call it. And you want them to sound big. The great thing about the counter melodies with the plucks was that they gave a nice contrast to the big, dirty, big lead that I mentioned prior. So, authentic strings. What I did is I did the typical Roman numeral. I went G, E minor, D, C. So I went 1, 6, 5, 4. You can't really go wrong with 1, 6, 5, 4. I mean, obviously you can mix it up. I'm not saying you have to do that. It's just that I always think it seems to work nicely. Yeah, just because it just seems to work really well in that regard. So this is what the authentic strings sounded like. So I'm going to make a quick thing. I'm going to just take this off. So this is what they originally sounded like. Now that's nice, but I'm gonna, and it works, and I like it. It's a good sound. But as I've said, as I've said in future videos when I bring in the lo-fi, how to do lo-fi, I talk about this plugin a lot. So the Nicky Romero sidechain, it is a game changer. Okay, I cannot stress it enough. It is amazing. Okay, and I think it only costs something like £20. I could be wrong now, maybe it's gone up, but it's not a lot of money for what it does. So now that I've put Nicky Romero back on, this is now what the strings sound like with the sidechain. It's going along with your kick. Here we go. Just adds a bit of life to it. And so I put the strings in, like I say, standard chord progression, as easy as it comes. If you're not sure what I mean, go on Google, type in Roman numeral music chords. You will get the big sheet. Again, if you look at my Soundation videos, where I've looked at Soundation, how to use that software, again, the chord sequence is there and how they are put together. So just typing on Google, chord sequence, Roman numerals, it's all there. So the one thing I found with drum and bass as well is the reason we've got so many melodies going on is the sound is a big sound, okay? It's got to be big, okay? People are going to be moving to this. It's going to have that drive behind it. So I added another chords with this plugin called Nightfall. Now, Nightfall is a pad, okay? So I've got pad and strings. So Nightfall sounded like this when I first put it in. Okay, again, my good friend Nicky Romero, he doesn't know me by the way, but again, using the same thing, you get this nice sound. Again, it just brings it to life. Let's hear it with the strings. Now, if you listen to that with the melodies, they're available to us. So you can already hear how that works. So the big final, well, not quite the final thing, but the next thing we're going to look at is the bass. Now, again, I've got 3 tracks. The first thing I'm going to mention is the big saw bass. So the big saw bass, you want your bass to have a thick sound. So again, this is what the sound of the big saw bass sounds like. Okay, so that just gave it the oomph there to make it go again with the drums. Just wanted to give it that extra. I've seen people use slower bass lines. So again, it depends on your preference, but this is what it sounds like with the rest. Okay, so again, there's a lot going on. Then we have a deep sub. Now, the one thing I will say about drum and bass is you've got to remember effectively what a sub bass is. If you're listening to this through your phone right now, watching this video through your phone, you're probably not going to hear the sub bass because sub bass really is more of a feel. If you put your headphones on, when you get that kind of booming sense in your ears, a lot of that is coming from the sub bass, if not pretty much all of it. So I'm just going to quickly play through that again, just to explain. I didn't go over the big saw bass. I've just effectively created it so that we've got a lot. So instead of it being one long line, I've got obviously a lot of short MIDI notes before a long one. So let me show you how that looks when it's in. Okay, so yeah, so it just, the other thing I will say about the bass, if I just had that going all the way each time like it does on the final 2, I found it got boring. So with a bass line, again, like a melody, what I'd do differently is I'd probably play the root note, so in this instance it's G, keep playing it, and then just add an odd note. Okay, all I've done is added an A note there. It's only one tone up. That's it, and it just gives us that extra bit of life again. And it's the same there. But I found out after some trial and error that doing it all the way kind of lost its impact. So that's something else you can look at doing. Deep sub bass. So this is just effectively following the chords with the bass. I don't know if you can hear that or not, depending on your speakers. Yeah, so play it. Yeah, so that's just underlying underneath the other bass, just to give us that extra oomph, again, that I mentioned earlier. And then finally, I just wanted to mix it up. So I wanted to add an extra bass in just to mix up kind of our overall sound. So I also had the deep wave bass, which effectively is the same as the sub. It's just playing long notes, and it sounds like this. So it rings out, this bass line. It doesn't stop dead. Okay, again, this was available as a stock plugin. So for my basses, I've got a mixture. I've got effectively the sub bass, which all of you will need in your track. My deep wave bass has got that sense of once you hold the note, it stays there, it lasts until the next note is played. And then with the big saw bass, it's a bit more hit, you know, the note is hit and then it disappears and so on. So if you play it. Okay. That's also down to, obviously, the amount of notes I've done. So I've mixed it up there by having one bass that holds out the note, one that does it as a fast rhythm. It's completely up to you guys. Like I say, you could do it these ways. But one thing I will say that I noticed about drum and bass is that it's good to layer up the sounds to make it sound big. So I've got a pad and strings for the chords. I've got, as I've said, 4 things for the melodies. And then obviously I've got 3 bass here, and I've got 3 things for the drums if you count the other topper as well. So there's a lot that goes into this, yeah? But these are all fundamentals that you need. Now, the one thing as well that I want to mention is down here. So I also, and you can find these online on sample sites, you should be able to find them for free. Most DAWs come with something like this. Most drum and basses use risers, so they sound like this. And that's just to bring in the big drop, effectively, in most cases. So you'll see here that this is all my intro. I haven't got no drums playing yet. The riser comes in, and then we've got down here my drop line. Okay, so if I play it with the drop line, it sounds like this. Okay, so that's effectively the drop. So you've got synth. So you want a synth riser, sorry. So you want to bring that in for every bit that's about to build up into the next section. And then the one of the last things, well, I'll go on to this first. So I used a voice, which is basically just a girl saying konnichiwa, which is hello in Japanese, I believe. That's effectively my drop. Big anime fan, as a lot of my students know. So I just wanted to use something Japanese just to put my own kind of personal taste into that. Then when we get into the drop, you will also normally get, with a lot of drum and bass, white noise. Unfortunately, in Logic, with a stock that I had earlier, and I haven't had time to go and find the sample and download it, you would use white noise. Luckily, I found a decent alternative, the noise sweeper, which sounds like this. Okay, so to put that into context, with the drop, I'm going to play it from the top, and then you're going to hear it with the drop. So this is what it sounds like with everything. So now we've got, wrong way. Now we've got the drums and everything else all added in together, okay? So this is what it sounds like. So the last thing I want to mention that I also obviously did is I broke up my main sample of the girl speaking. So what I did was effectively chop up the audio sample. So if I bring this out and show you the full thing. Oh no, it's just that actually. So that here at the bottom where I'm highlighted, that's just con, then this is nichua. So what I did is I just sampled this bit and cut it. The way I did that was just effectively in Logic, just made it shorter so that every time that's played, it's just that. So that's just gone, and then I just copied it, put it there. Oh, not quite there because the tail's there. Okay, and then basically put them together. This is just a rough example. Oh, it isn't because this keeps getting caught out there. Yeah. And then they sound, obviously, as you do it. Yeah, so you can do con, and then obviously you can have konnichiwa or whatever you want to do, depending on your sample and what you use. So you can cut up the samples. You can obviously do that. There's a number of ways you could do that. You could do it how I did, where you just take the left corner, place them in. I know FL Studio has a good way where they can get you to put it all in time and everything. I know Logic does that. And luckily for me, I just put them in place myself, and it worked quite nicely. So you can see here that I've done it over here. So it says con. Yeah. And it's just to, like I say, add things in, just mix it up, make it a bit interesting really, and make it so that, you know, so it's not just the music, we've got a bit of vocal in there in some way. And that's the sample. As I say, you know, a lot of people who do drum and bass, they sing over it, they get singers to write words over the music they create. There's a number of ways you can do it, or you can stick to the samples of someone speaking like I did in the example here. So what I'm going to also show you before we finish this lesson is a little bit of structure. So the other thing that is worth noting is obviously you want different sections. So we've got the build up, which you heard, that goes into the main section. Now I'm going to play from the fast section that then breaks down into a middle section. Okay, sounds like this. So again, I'm just going to play it from here and play the next section just to give you an idea as well. So effectively what we're really doing is just going from fast and then taking most of the instruments away apart from maybe a couple, just so that it maintains the focus, the rhythm, the tempo, but it's just kind of coming down, so we've got a nice bit of dynamic range in there. Yeah, so, good timing, so I was going to stop you. So effectively, to summarize then, guys, what you need for your drum and bass is a BPM between 160 to 180. Again, a lot have been using 175, so do with that information what you will. Drums, okay, so I'm just going to show you the kick again. You want to make sure that your kick is spaced out, so first bar, then on the third beat, then on the third beat, then on the first, just to give it that sense of that rhythm that we all know. Hi-hats, you want to kind of have that constant 1-3 rhythm. So you got on the 1 and 3 and 1 and 3 and 1 and 3. Snare on 2 and 4. Okay, nice and simply done. And then that makes that work there. I added the top hat topper just to give us an extra high range in the drums, because it is Drum and bass, obviously in the name, it's quite low in its frequency, so it's nice to add the toppers just to bring out the higher end. Then obviously the melody, the short, precise, yeah, very simple. Look up, if you have a chord sequence like the G major sequence, again, if you go on Google and you type in G major scale, major scale, it will show you what the notes are that you can use. For G major, just to say, it's all the white notes apart from the F. You just move our semitone up to F sharp. Okay. Then we looked at putting the chords together. So we had strings and a pad. Okay. Mention my friend. Look it up if you can. If you can buy it, get it. It's fantastic. Can't recommend it enough, Nicky Romero. Yeah. And then also we've got the bass. So we have 3 basses. Sub is very important. Make sure you have a sub. If you don't have 3 basses and you just have 2, make sure one of them is a sub bass. Just because, as I say, that gives you the extra oomph, especially when people listen through their headphones. You need to make sure you add risers. Okay, you would have heard it a few times where it kind of builds up quite nicely. And then you want some white noise or a noise sweeper to come in when the main section does, just to add that bit of air to the track. And then the final thing is find a sample, find a vocalist or something like that that can add to your song and help with your drop, okay? So the drop is obviously where it goes silent before the big amount of music comes in. In my example, it's the konnichiwa. Konnichiwa. Okay, so that's it for drum and bass. I'm going to upload this song, so it should be available straight away with this tutorial. So please check out the song. I hope you enjoy it. If any questions, queries, or concerns, or whatever it might be that you want to ask, please hit me up in the comment section below. Please like and subscribe to this channel. It really does mean a lot. I've had a lot of positive feedback from people. I'm glad that these music lessons have helped people. If there's anything that you want me to look into, please don't hesitate to ask. I had someone ask me if I could show them how to upload a song onto YouTube for free, which I did. And I know they were grateful that that was available to them. So thank you again, guys. Have a great week, evening, day, night, whatever time it is, wherever you are watching this. Thanks very much, guys. Take care. Until next time. Thank you.